Push 3 cars off the road on the other side. What a genius. Some guy is being a Jeep. Anyways, apparently I wasn't going fast enough at 5 over the limit with the trailer. Trailer, did I say? Yes, a trailer. And on that trailer is a car. I'm in Oregon right now. I'm driving back from California. I just went and picked up a 2015 STI with 12,930 miles on it. That's it. It was a friend of mine, and he got hit with the whole emissions thing. In California, they pulled him over on the side of the road, said, "Your shit's not legal." And then they said, "You're just not legal." So they give him a fat ass fine, and then they don't let you register your car until you fix your illegal stuff. Well, he had a, yeah, right? But this is California here. This isn't even EPA. This is California shit. Their California roadside refs thing. So anyways, let me roll the windows up and back in case they're too loud. So the car's been sitting for 3 years. He was like, I can either spend 10 grand putting it back to stock, making it conforming, or I can sell the car. And so he tried to sell the car for a few years, and then just recently was talking to me and told me he'd give it to me for a good deal. And so I just said, okay. Yeah, state rep, exactly. So he was like, yeah, dude, I'll give it to you for this. And I'm like, all right, I'll be there next week. And he's like, well, I can't sell it to you now on the title yet, but I'll have the title soon. So I waited a month or so, and then you got the title. And so now I have a red 2015 STI with 12,930 miles on it. It's modified, clearly, as I stated. That's how he got hit with the ref and all that. But yeah, I can't see it because of damn glare. Anyways, red, white gram lights on it with Toyo Proxys R888s and a big precision turbo, 70 something. I don't even know what the hell the turbo's on it. I forget. It's got ID2000s in it, and it had ethanol in it, and it sat for way too long for 2000s, and so the injectors are all gummed up and so messed up they're not giving them the full flow that it's programmed for. So that sucks for me. But the 2000s, I would pull them out anyways to put 17s in it, or 13s based on the horsepower output. This car beats 17s. It made 780 wheel, I think it was, something like that, on somebody else's dyno, 700 something wheel. According to them, it broke their dyno record. And you can see it on the internet racing a Corvette. There's a Corvette that it raced, and it won some Corvette with nitrous on it. And yeah, anyways, so I got it, and I don't have a whole lot of plans for it. I'm gonna fix the fuel system so that it runs right again. I'm gonna retune it, and then I'm gonna enable flex fuel, because right now it's just straight ethanol. There's no flex fuel sensor, no fuel pressure sensor, so I'm gonna put those two things on it. And then I will tune it again, see what it makes on our dyno, on our Dream Crusher dyno, then pull the engine out and put my cams in it, put it back in, change nothing, and do a pull. Now what that'll do is that'll give me some data on the airflow that my cams do. They do airflow. The airflow that my cams are capable of. And what'll happen is, since it'll be speed density, what'll happen is when I put cams in, if they flow more than what's in it, or if I should say if it becomes more efficient than what's in it, then either one, then what'll happen is the VE will go up. If the VE goes up, then the car will run leaner because it's speed density, so it won't add any more fuel. So, thanks, Chris. So if they do less air, then I will have it run richer. Now, this test is only, I would say, 80% accurate, because without altering cam timing, with my ramp rates being so high, I could potentially lose power in one zone and then tweak the cams a couple degrees and then get a bunch of power back due to back pressure and overlap and all that kind of stuff. So I will do it without tweaking cam timing, and then I will tweak cam timing and see what happens. Now, when I tune it with the cams that are in it, I don't recall if they're S2s or S3s. You know, I'm going to manipulate the cam timing with those to get as much power as possible, and then do the same with mine. But firstly, back to back with no manipulation, then with manipulation. So hopefully, I'll see a trend where it gets leaner and the power goes up, and then I'll know that I'm pushing more air for the same boost levels. Now, aside from that, I want to talk about something else. Pretty simple, actually. It's just about fueling on a Subaru, only because someone sent me an email and asked me a question, and I was driving and I didn't want to answer it. So it's just simple. On your access port, if you have an access port tuned car, you have the option of watching a bunch of gauges, a bunch of parameters. One of them is air fuel correction, one's air fuel learning. And I had 2 emails in the same day about this. So one person, whose car I haven't tuned yet, asked me what air fuel correction was because my car is getting correction. Well, the simple answer is, yeah, of course it is, because that's what they do. Air fuel correction 1 is the instantaneous correction that the ECU is doing to the fuel based on the feedback from the front oxygen sensor, or AF sensor, whatever you want to call it. Subaru calls them AF sensors in the front and oxygen sensors in the back. But they're all oxygen sensors, they're all AF sensors. So anyways, again, AF correction 1 is the primary sensor, as in 1, and it is the correction provided by that sensor due to an instantaneous error in target AFR and current AFR. So if my current AFR is 12:1 and my target is 14:1, then a negative correction will ensue until my current AFR of 12 leans out to the target AFR of 14. This system is always active, unless you're in an EJ and in boost. But this is the only feedback loop that is available for fueling in the ECU. Now, what does that mean? It means it's the only sensor that's telling the ECU you've got it right or you've got it wrong. Now, due to the very dynamic nature of an engine, this value will change. It is, next to impossible to get that number to never change. You would have to somehow have perfect modeling of the charge temperature, of the volumetric efficiency, of the swirling and tumble. I get passed by a semi. The speed limit changed and I didn't speed up fast enough. Of the tumble and swirl efficiency, in the cylinder and that kind of stuff, which is freaking impossible. You can only get so close. GM has what they call their virtual VE or GMVE, and that is equations based on various parameters in the engine that kind of calculate what the VE of the engine should be, but then they still have to deal with charge temperature modeling, and that is how much does the air heat up and or cool down from the time it's metered or measured for temperature by the intake air temp sensor. So in a Subaru in factory location, for a turbo like an EJ, the intake air temp sensor is in the mass airflow sensor, and when the air goes flowing by, to tell it so it can measure how much mass is going by, there's also another little sensor in there. It's a little bulb you can see on the side of the sensor, and that measures the temperature of the air. Now, the air can change temperature faster than the bulb can, so there's always a possibility the air is hotter or colder than it is being read, and that the bulb is catching up behind it. So while there's that lag time, the measured temperature is obviously wrong. And then it gets heated up by the turbocharger, most likely it's heated by the turbocharger, especially if you're in boost. And then it gets cooled off, hopefully, by the intercooler. Now, how much does it heat up and how much does it cool down? You have no way of knowing. The best you could do was model the compressor efficiency on the turbocharger to get an idea of how much it heats up, but you can never get that exact. And then the intercooler would require so much data to model for how much is cooling the air down that it'd be practically impossible. You would need to know how fast you're going, how long you've been going that fast, what's outside air temperature, what's outside air humidity, what's outside air pressure, because the air density of the air going across the intercooler to know how much heat transfer is occurring. You need to know the charge temperature before the intercooler, so that it knows what the delta T would be across the aluminum. You gotta know the specific heat capacity of the aluminum. You gotta know the thermal conductivity of the aluminum and all the areas of the radiator for how much surface area there is in the radiator, what the airflow is through certain fins versus other fins, what the total effective usage is of the intercooler, what their efficiency, like all this stuff, right? You can never ever model all of that, and if you could not possibly put that in ECU, because the calculation would be so in-depth, requires so many inputs and so much data that it would never get the calculation done in any reasonable amount of time. So that being said, the actual air temp as it enters the throttle body, if you don't have a temp sensor next to it, is still completely unknown. And even if you have one next to it, it's not likely known because there's always this lag time that I was talking about before. Then once it crosses the throttle body, if the throttle body is open a little bit, if it's shut a little bit, the air can change temperature there. The air can we cancel the air temp in the MAF and put additional? Absolutely, I do it all the time. So then it can change temperature again going across the throttle body if the blade is shut a little bit and the humidity is high in the air, or you know, whatever. As the humidity changes, the air going across that throttle body could create tumble or swirl, or it could drop pressure. And when it drops pressure, it's going to absorb heat, right? So all kinds of things can happen. It's going to cool off. I mean, all sorts of things can happen to the air, even just going across the throttle body. Then it enters the intake manifold and goes through the runners of the manifold, picks up a little bit of heat. Doesn't pick up a lot, you know, based on velocity. It'll pick up less at higher velocities than slow velocities. Then it enters the port on the head. The port's always really hot because it's a coolant temp, and then some. Usually coolant temp, I should say, and then some. Usually coolant temp. That's going to absorb some from that. Then it's going to get shot with fuel. It might cool off. It might heat up. Who knows what's temperature of the fuel? Then it's going to cross the valve, and it's going to absorb energy from the valve. That's almost always going to heat up as it crosses the valve because the valve is hot because it's had combustion the cycle before. And then it's going to enter the chamber where it has all this heat residual from previous combustion events, and there's exhaust gas retained in the cylinder. It's going to transfer heat from the exhaust gas. How much is in there? How hot was it? What was the cheese before? Right? Are you getting the idea? It's freaking impossible to monitor or to model the actual charge temperature of an engine. There's just way too many variables. You would have to know what was the back pressure on the exhaust side to know how much exhaust gas is retained in the cylinder. You have to know the overlap that occurred to know how much of it blew through backwards into the intake during overlap, find out how much total exhaust mass was in there. And then with the mass, you would need to know, like I said, the temperature to know how much there was to transfer between that and the incoming air charge. What was the thermal conductivity of the crap in the exhaust? I mean, there's just so much. You can never model actual air temperature as it enters the engine. And so, because of that, the O2 sensor will always be correcting. Okay? Fuel temperature affects how well it atomizes. It affects the final air-fuel ratio. It affects how much it cools the air charge, if it cools the air charge, right? So fuel temperature also has to be modeled into this as well to try and figure out what the actual temperature is. So again, never happened, and since it never happens or never could happen, we try and get somewhat close. And the only two things that we typically listen to are coolant temperature, flow rate, air temperature as measured by the IAT, and then sometimes fuel temperature, sometimes, right? And with that, we get like a general roundabout idea of what the charge temperature could be. But again, that will change drastically based on previous operation, based on how long it's been running at a high temperature or a low temperature, or if it's a high load or load, all that kind of stuff will always change. So, AF correction 1 is always going to be moving around, always. The only time you should be concerned about it is if it stays parked at 25% for a while, or if there's such a sudden change in the fueling as measured by the O2 sensor that the correction can't happen fast enough to correct it, and the car runs lean and hesitates, something like that. In those situations, then you would use air fuel correction and say, oh, look, I got this huge correction. Or the correction is only 15%, but my AFRs went from 11 to 15 really, really fast, and it misfired. That would mean that the PID scheme for the lambda correction, which is based on the air fuel reading from target to actual, there's a PID scheme associated with that, which stands for proportional integral derivative again. That might not be aggressive enough to catch a lean trend as it's occurring. Absolutely possible. So you need that data to say, oh, look at that. Here's a hesitation, oh look, AFR is actually lean right there. There's a correction, it hit 25 or hit 15%, and then I shifted, or the correction or the problem went away. But in some cases, it's fast enough to catch it, but the error is too large, and it goes to 25% and maxes out. And so those are really the only times that you should be concerned what your AF correction says, because it's always going to be moving. So if you got hesitation, if you got an obvious lean spot, or your correction is maxed out for a period of time, that AF correction can provide some useful data, might be something worth looking at. But for the most part, as you're driving around, it's always going to be fluctuating. As you tip in fueling is nearly impossible to completely compensate for the change in charge density, the tau properties of the intake manifold and the port, and all that stuff. It's also really hard to get, and so there's typically multiple tip-in strategies happen simultaneously. And so as those strategies become more or less accurate based on previous operating and current operating conditions, that O2 sensor may have bigger or larger changes. So if I tip in one time and it's rich, it's going to start pulling a bit of fuel out. But next time the manifold's really hot and things happen, or I'm sorry, manifold's really cold or something, then I tip in and I don't get as much atomization, and the fueling actually goes a little bit lean. Things like that can happen. So yeah, anyway, so air fuel correction, the short version, is the instantaneous correction based on feedback from the O2 sensor, AF correction 1. Then AF learning 1 is actually 4 zones on the EJ and 6 or 8 on the FA, I forget. The FA has idle strategies for learning as well as normal strategies for learning, where the EJ only has 4 normal strategy, or 4 normal zones for the learning strategy. And that is based on mass airflow, so 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 30 or 40, and 40 plus up to I think 80, or something based on other cars. Some years are different. Some are 0 to 4.5, and then 4.5 to 10, and some are 10 to 40, some are 10 to 30. Just whatever Subaru decided. I never really looked into why. It's probably based on displacement, but I didn't even think of checking it. But anyways, there's those 4 zones. So correction 1 will have 4 distinct values and you can see them individually on the axis board if you look them up: A, B, C, and D. A is the low one, B is medium, C, D is the high end. And coincidentally, here comes an STI, a silver STI, blazing up on my left side. He's probably watching the stream, recognized where I was, saw the STI. Now he's eyeballing. Just kidding, he's not watching the stream. What's up, dude? Thanks, man. Oh, it's WRX. I said STI. Anyways, he gave me the shaka. Hang loose, bro. So those 4 zones are learning zones based on the mass airflow sensor. And so what it kind of is it's set up to be a MAF error correction table. So if the car runs lean in one spot all the time, it's because the MAF is probably reporting the wrong value. And that's what it's set up for. So if you see corrections that are high, then you should potentially be concerned, because that means maybe the mass airflow calibration is wrong, or you have a leak or a dirty or failing mass airflow sensor, something like that. If it's less than 10% though, I wouldn't sweat it, because that's actually really good. Even from the factory, they're often not much better than that. And if you're less than 5%, then your tuner's amazing. If you're less than 3%, your tuner's a god. If it's 0, your tuner's a dick because he turned off learning. Or your engine's too cold and it never had time to learn. I never got into that strategy. So combined, the learning and the correction are providing changes to your current fueling. And so as you pass through those different zones, your learning will change, and you'll see it pop up and pop down and associated with those 4 zones. And I have a feeling my stream bot just glitched like crazy. I saw my phone change towers from 5G to LTE, so I apologize if I lost you from that. Anyway, so that's correction and learning. They both work together. They add up to each other. So one question that was asked was, can you delete the intake air temp sensor in the mass airflow and put it somewhere else? And I briefly said yes. I do it all the time. So with that, I say yes, do it all the time. And I do it because I want to eliminate those questions about how much is the turbo heating up and how much intercooler cooling it off. Granted, don't forget, there's still the lag time I talked about before, but it's definitely very, very good to do that. I do it as much as I can. I do it on as many cars as the customers will let me, or we have time to do it. Since I started doing that about 11 years now. Since like 11 years ago, I started doing that on math-based cars, and the number of cylinder 4 failures has dropped dramatically. It is my opinion that that is the number one thing you can do to help save cylinder 4. The next, I believe, is the cooling mod that I created, and then obviously a good tune. So those are like the 3 biggest things you can do to save cylinder 4, and the IAT relocate is definitely one of them. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, and I mean, the heat-soaked intercooler is what kills cylinder 4 most of the time anyway. In addition to the extra heat, right? You throw a bunch of hot air at it as you're taking off from a stop sign, and you're likely to blow it up. So, to answer the question, yes, absolutely do that. Just make sure it's calibrated correctly and wired in. It's really easy to do. If you use SD harness, some of them retain the mass airflow sensor. Some of them just break out the IAT. Some cancel the mass airflow sensor as well and give you just an IAT. Don't do that one. Use one that breaks out the IAT and wire that in. I sell a sensor on my website that I think is really good. It's modern looking. It's not a big, huge, brass, ugly GM sensor that hurts the eyes, or the plug that doesn't look like it matches the car. The one I sell is a Bosch one that's used on VWs. It's black, it's plastic, so it's not going to retain a ton of heat. It's not brass, and it has a nice modern plug. Looks really nice. Looks like it belongs in the car. So I sell that one. It's fast responding. It's got almost factory calibration. It's really good. So I sell that one on the website. It's super cheap. I also sell it with the option of a mounting bung or flange, whatever you want to call it. I have them made by a local machine shop. I think they're like 18 bucks or something like that. It comes in curved and flat, but you can use either for either. The curved is just extra nice for laying it down on a 2.75 inch pipe, but you can technically use either because it's such a small distance. Well, that's my dad. I'm going to decline that so I can talk to you guys real quick. Okay, and I don't know why it's not. That's annoying. I hit decline and it still ran. You know, I really like the Pixels, but this one has been a total pain in the dick. Like, half the features don't freaking work. Anyways, and the second question that I thought was very important was posted by DZ Can't Drive. He said you're on a 2-round loss bonus of $2,600 in the bank, average economy, your T side, and do you force full save or partial buy? And I think it's really important that we answer that question. First, the answer is depends. If it's 13 to 14, you fucking force, because only pussies save for a tie. Outside of that, what do you buy? Or what else do you do? Well, the question is it $2,600 before you get your loss bonus, or $2,600 after your loss bonus? That's after loss bonus. That means you finished the last round with $700 in your pocket, which means you bought the previous round, which means the other team probably has a bunch of fucking AKs. And so while you may be tempted to Galil and armor, you will not have head armor and leaving you susceptible to many, many headshots. It may be beneficial at this point in time to get full armor with head armor and then get some SMGs and rush the fuck out of B with flashes in the smoke. That is the answer. And I hope DZ Can't Drive can appreciate that answer. And if he tells me I'm wrong, then I'm never going to fucking play with him ever again. And if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It is one of the only games that he plays because apparently he had children with it and he must owe it alimony or something because he plays it all the time and never plays hardly anything else for more than like 5 minutes. So if you hear me, Josh, play some Valheim with me or some shit. Jesus, I just want to build a big house and kill bad guys. I think those are actually the only 2 questions I had in the stream. Any other questions real quick that I can answer for you while I slow down and not hit these 2 trucks doing 20 miles an hour and a 65? All right. power steering fluid in there. Yes, Igor, I owe you a ton. And actually, I got you a present, my friend. Those that don't know, my truck needed some love, and Igor was there to help me. My arm is still a little sore from my surgery, and I can't do all the things that I used to be able to do, but it's definitely getting better and get better fast. My doctor says I'm a fucking stud because he's never seen anyone heal so fast. So that's nice. But that being said, I'm still not 100%. And so he came out and helped me for 2 days work on my truck. My power steering, or my steering box, had basically blown all the seals out of it, and would empty out the power steering system in about 20 to 40 miles. And so Igor helped me pull it out of the truck and put new seals in it. He also helped me change my idler arm and pitman arm because I thought they were bad, but they were not. And then my tranny lines, which is very common on the Dirty Max, were leaking like crazy. They'd finally just given up the ghost, and there was tons of fluid coming out of them. So he helped me change my lines to the transmission. And then the following day, or maybe it was 2 days later, he helped me change the fuel level sender in my tank. It had taken a crap and would read 0 or full or whatever it wanted. God damn, this asshole in the Subaru, he's tailgating me. Whatever it wanted. So I figured if I was going to drive 28 to 40 hours, I should probably have a working fuel level sender. So Igor, thank you very much for helping me out for those 2 days. Like I said, I'm bringing you a gift I got down here in California as a thank you. Spencer asked how far am I from home. I am 9 hours. I think I'm 9 hours. I'm in Southern Oregon on the 97. This trucker is trying to share lanes with me. That's cool. I like lane sharing. He's got far too many tires though for lane splitting. He should only have 2 for lane splitting. And boy, these feel like right your ass up there. Anyways, so I'm like 8 or 9 hours from home. A cell phone signal? I do. Okay, good. And was there another question? Anything else? Live chat. Try and grind out tonight. No. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get home tonight for sure. Yes. I'm towing the STI right now. It's on the flatbed behind me. That's the Subaru that's tailgating me. That's the joke I was making. It's a red 2015. Maybe you can see it right here. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways. I'm gonna get. I mean, shit. I normally go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning. So I'm gonna get home at like 1:30 according to the nav. So that's a normal time for me. That's not too late. So I'm probably just gonna drive it all night. See what else we got in the chat here. I'm from home. Yep. Higher stream fluid. Yes, it is. Stream crash. Okay. Yeah, Cody. If you're in here, Cody, that question wasn't just for you. That was for someone named Allie as well. She asked me about AF correction. She was the one who I haven't tuned yet. And then obviously you're the one that has tuned. And you're the reason why I covered the hesitation part of the question. So it is beautiful out here. You know that? I considered moving out here to Oregon a while ago before I bought my house in Idaho. I really wanted to go back to Idaho because I freaking love it there. But I was contemplating going somewhere else. But as it stands, Idaho likes to preserve your rights, and so I stayed. Oh, 50, yay, 50. You always know in Oregon because they use that shitty font for their speed limit signs. Like, why do you have to be the only state in the country that uses a bunk-ass font for your signs? It's like that one friend of yours that sends all his emails or text messages in some girly fucking font, and you're like, come on, bro, what are you doing? That's Oregon. Oh, that was 50 for 200 yards. Okay, back to 65 again. Let's see, if I turn this camera around, if I can get the button to. Come on, nope. So this freaking YouTube app has the switch camera direction button under the camera on the Pixel, so I can't turn it around because I can't quite do it. I'll turn the phone around. This is my drive right now. It's pretty. I got some bitchin' pictures of Shasta. Man, Shasta was looking beautiful today. And it's crazy, these pictures, it's this huge mountain in the distance. and it feels like it's right on top of you. And I did a check to see how far it was. It was 100 miles from me, and it looked like I was at the base of it. It's such a huge mountain. I was at 4,000 feet, and the summit of Shasta is 14,200 and something like that. It's really damn high, and it's really good. There's a lot of volcanic rock out here. Oh, speaking of the freaking fires that were out here over by the Shasta Redding area, obliterated so much mountainside. And it's really sad seeing all the burnt trees everywhere, but it was really neat because you got to see how much of the terrain was volcanic rock. It was hidden by the trees before, but tons and tons and tons of volcanic rock. And then you can see these huge flat beds in between mountains that were obviously either lava flows or big accumulations of water, because it was completely flat, you know, at 3,000 feet elevation and stuff. And it's really interesting. I wanted to take geology in college too, in addition to my physics and everything else, but I never did it. Interesting shit. Oregon sucks. Why'd you move there? Only for the scenery, man. And that's why I was saying the scenery was just so pretty. This side of Oregon. And the coast is nice too. You just gotta deal with all the, oh man, I missed the rest area. I guess I'm gonna hold this poop longer. Yeah, mostly just the scenery and the space. I just like how pretty it is. Well, the Idaho too. Idaho was also absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, it sucks. What's the negative side of a Link G4 plug and play on a JDM STI EJ20K? Oh, there's no negative side to that, man. Like, there's only positives. I can't think of any bad thing about that. I mean, you've got more features than the ECU ever came with, and you have way more control. Yeah, I can't think of any negatives at all. Like, I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat. Whole family loved Idaho while we were up there. Oh yeah, well it's nice. It's gorgeous. You know, we love it. My parents got divorced when I was really little, and one went to Idaho and one stayed in California, and so I went back and forth between both of them during the summers and stuff, and it was a good time. It was a really, really good time, and it's just so pretty. And we lived out in Wolf Lodge District, which is past Coeur d'Alene, on the 90 to exit 22, and then you go like 4 miles back on a windy road, and we had 195 acres back there, raised cattle and rotor quads and shotguns, and you know, just had a great freaking time, you know, dealing with nature and hacking through the ice with a freaking axe or a chainsaw and having to clear your freaking roads, you know, that kind of shit. It was just great. It was nice being in touch with the earth more than just living in a track home development in the middle of a crybaby suburb where everyone's bitching about COVID or the color of their hair or what gender they think they should be or whatever. It's just nice to be out there and ground yourself to nature and hunt and fish and all that stuff. So it was wonderful. Rural Oregon is very different than the rest of the state. Yeah, the mindset's different. And he's at California too, absolutely. Yep. Well, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of liberals living in areas that are hard to live in. And I know that gets borderline political on that, but you know, like, nature's not giving them free shit. You know, like, you got to work for your food in a rural area, and yeah, there's no Biden trees or Obama bucks or anything like that in the woods. So you get a lot more people that are down to earth or maybe libertarian or conservative or whatever, and they just want to live a life free of all that drama, all the city drama, the hustle and the bustle. Slow it down some. You know, you get this constant reward for the labor you expend. You know, the work you put out, you know what the result is going to be, and you know what you're going to get out of it. And for some people, that's really important. You know. Link website recommending to go speed density on Link G4. Stay with math. I mean, you can stay with MAF if you want, but you got the link. You got a system that's completely designed for speed density. Nothing wrong with using it. However, if your mass airflow sensor is accurate, MAF is way more accurate than speed density. You know, I mean, the number one job of an ECU, the first thing it does, other than establish crankshaft position via the crank trigger and cam trigger, is determining the mass of air that's entering the cylinder so it knows how much fuel to put in. Well, with speed density, you're calculating that based on that fucked up charge temp calculation I told you about before, right? The inaccuracies associated with charge temp. And then volumetric efficiency, which is a value that you put in there, and pressure. So with that, you get a mass, but it's a calculated mass. It's an estimate mass. It's estimated, and often it can be grossly incorrect. Whereas mass airflow is literally the mass, as is measured by an airflow sensor. So mass airflow is way more accurate. It isn't an estimate anymore. It is a measurement. This is the mass. So mass airflow is more accurate than speed density. And mass airflow is better than speed density in lots of ways. But when you exceed the capability of mass airflow sensor, then you have to go speed density or something else. So if you want to keep MAF because it's how precise it is, then keep MAF. But the link is made primarily to run speed density, and it does a really good job at it. But you will have corrections, and if you don't have a good wideband, you're not going to have a good time. You need a good wideband. You need your PI controls for the wideband set up correctly for your lambda feedback and all of that. Because again, with those same air temp charge calculations I was talking about before, you can't model them perfectly, and you will have errors that you'll need to correct for. So being able to be out in public without a mask, and I know, especially in Oregon, and they literally call the cops on you. Yeah, I went to a couple places in Oregon actually already, and California without my mask on. But it was in rural Oregon and rural California when I went without my mask, and no one said anything. Half people were wearing, half people weren't, and the guy behind the counter wasn't, so I knew I was good at that store. I'm not in a hurry to put one on. Still, you're paying salaries for state that's misbehaving. Oh, sure, if you're living out in a rural area and you're paying your taxes, yeah, absolutely. You're paying those politicians to keep fucking you. That happens. But all politicians are fucking you pretty much. It's just kind of what's going on. And without getting too freaking political about it, I seem to recall that the Second Amendment says necessary to secure a free state. And the bottom line is that they're supposed to be afraid of you and your guns. That's what it's fucking there for. So they stop fucking you so much. But people don't like that. They get all bent out of shape. And let them try and take their stuff. So, yeah, enough of that. I don't want to get on a rant about that shit while I'm driving. How about the EPA? Oh, that's what I want to talk about. If you're somebody I haven't tuned, and you send me an email, and you say, catless, in that email, the answer is no. If you say, I got this catless downpipe, how much for a tune? I will say, $4,987, because that's how I'm going to get fined for doing it. And you just created a written paper trail of evidence that I did it. So the answer will always be no. So don't ever use the word catless and email me, because I won't tune your car. That's a mistake that you make, and that's what you have to deal with. I had a place call me yesterday, asked me to tune out some catless stuff, and I was like, no, won't do it. The EPA is all over everybody right now for that shit. It's not worth it. So just say you get a downpipe and surprise me with it or something, you know? Don't write that shit in an email. And as it is, I'll probably send you away anyways. Yeah, so that poor guy bought a car that had a full exhaust on it, no cats or anything, had a check engine light, wants me to turn the check engine light. I'm like, sorry, dude. And the used car dealership that contacted me, is actually, they sold it to him. I was like, can you do this? We can't do it because it's EPA stuff. I'm like, yeah, you think it's different for me? I can't do it either, but sorry, I can't help you. You're gonna have to fix that car. So, just wanted to put that out there. Don't ever say you got catalyst in it, because you're just gonna get turned away instantly. Probably lose signal again real soon. Outside of 5G, I'll be damned. Boy, this guy's crawling. Well, maybe not. Maybe I was just hauling ass. I'm doing 60 now. This thing tows too good. It tows way too damn good. Like, it's more comfortable with a car on the back than it was driving down here. Yeah, they did. Well, it's the diesel douche's fault, man. Those fucking diesel dipshits rolling coal on everybody thinking it's funny. That's not live. I'm in a little gully. I'm in a little gully here, so let me get through this. So, do I think they watch my emails? No, they're not watching them. But if something happens and they decide to look into me and or try and prosecute me for something as a tuner, because they're like, oh, I heard he does catless shit, then they very much can subpoena my emails. So I don't want to be part of that shit. I don't want to deal with that stuff. Like, it ain't worth it to me. So I don't do catless stuff. I definitely don't have written evidence to do catless stuff. That's just dumb. So no, I don't think they're watching my emails, but I believe that they can subpoena them. Yeah, you guys hear about Rally Sport Direct, the company that owns them? They got hit with $3 million in fines, and their calculated fine amount based on infraction that they determined that they'd done was $300 million, and the EPA kindly lowered that to freaking $3 million. Yeah, dude, my allergies are bad. You know me, I was in the hospital for a week because I was had a bad allergic reaction. Thoughts on external wastegate stuff? So the EPA didn't crack down on external wastegates. They did crack down on TGVs. I know that they were discussing external wastegates. I don't know if they've found infractions on that or not. But with external wastegates, you're literally bypassing the cat and dumping exhaust straight to the atmosphere. Granted, it's a low percentage of the total exhaust gas. It's mostly noise, but it's enough to get you in trouble. Do I think it's bullshit? Yeah, I think it's bullshit. But you could always run it back into the exhaust before the cat again, just so you have the boost control of an external and the quietness of an exhaust and the federal mandated compliance of the cat and go back into it again. So that's always an option. There's no reason you can't do that. Will you gain as much power? No. You absolutely gain more power going into the atmosphere. And it's not because of the cat, but that does play a small factor. It's just because of the overall restriction in the exhaust. You take a portion of the exhaust gas and move it outside the exhaust, you no longer have that 1 pound or 2 pounds of differential across the exhaust. So, I think I'm breaking up again. I apologize for that. Road trips are that way, you know. So yeah, external wastegates, yes, it's technically legal if you go outside atmospheric dump, or if you can go around the cat in the same pipe. Now, back in the day, that would have been a pretty cool idea to go around the cat. I don't know anybody that would have ever thought of that. I don't know why it's such a big deal anyways, because when you go full throttle in a car, it goes really rich, and the emissions go up a lot, and the cat is not very effective. It doesn't do shit anymore, because when you go open loop, it goes rich. So when you cool the cat down with that much fuel, or you make it ineffective open loop, does it matter really if you go outside the exhaust or inside the exhaust? Because the wastegate's not open at partial throttle, it's not open at low settings, it's open when you're in it, when you're open loop anyways. So I think that's kind of a bullshit one to really hit you with. but it's the EPA. You know, everyone was like, yeah, defund the EPA, fuck yes, go Trump and everything else. You defund the EPA, that's fucking awesome. Yeah, fuck the EPA, I get it. But the problem is that when you defund them, they have to get funding from somewhere else. And where do you think they get it from? From fining people that commit infractions. So it increased the amount of fines that they were levying against people, and he gave them motivation to do so. Well, I gotta pass this guy up. It's the passing zone here. I feel like he just punched it too. I get around him here. Alright. Now that I'm done breaking the law. I saw a question come in. I'm just gonna steer with my knee. I'm sure that's totally safe, right? What if I buy a Spexy Subaru TGB housing that don't have the tumblers built into them? Yeah, it's not USDM though, and it's not US federally allowed. So it doesn't matter if it was, you know, legal in Japan. It's not legal in the US. Just like a car that's not legal in California, and you bring it in at your SOL because it's not California emissions compliant. Most cars now built are California compliant, but there was a period of time where a non-California car would have issues getting to California because it wasn't California compliant. The Outback in like 02 or some shit had 5 cats on it to meet California standards, but only 2 cats on it for US standards. So if you have a California emissions Outback, you've got 502 sensors. I think 502 sensors and 5 cats or 4 cats, something ridiculous like that. It doesn't matter if it's a Japan part, it's not a US part, it's not federally approved US part, it doesn't matter. And if they look under your hood, you're still gonna have little plugs dangling there going, I used to be attached to something, I'm so lonely. You know, and then they're gonna see that shit and be like, that's not right, why is that unplugged? So they did the same thing with wings, actually, in Hawaii. They were being dicks about modifications of cars. Hawaii is a total cuckfest, man. Hawaii fucking sucks. When I lived there, they were like, oh, your wheels can't be more than an inch larger than stock, and if they are, they gotta be certified, blah, 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 and your lights can't be too bright. You can't change your horns, you can't change, you know, your exhaust. You know, if you do, you gotta get these certificates done and have all these inspections done. You gotta pay the state $150 for what they call it, like not rebuilds, but some sort of reconciliation bullshit where you paid the state to be allowed to modify your car, basically. And they only did the inspections on Tuesday and Thursday from like 9 to noon. So you were taking a day off of work, or you weren't able to get there, and it was like just the biggest clusterfuck ever, right? Well, they're pulling people over for wings. Oh, that wing is too big, it's blocking your view, all that kind of shit. And they pulled me over for a wing, and I had the factory 2.5 RS wing on there, and they were trying to tell me that it wasn't allowed. And then, luckily, I had the original brochure from Subaru for the car in my back seat at the time, and I pulled it and go, well, here's a picture of the car from Subaru. This is a factory fucking wing. Get off my ass. And they finally let me go. But other people would have the non-factory wings on there that were factory, and like the version 5 and 6 wings from Japan, and they weren't giving them any leeway. They were like, tough shit. It's not a U.S. car. It's not the one that came on it. You gotta take it off. So people were getting totally fucked on that because it wasn't the approved one. It wasn't the one that had been through the crash test. It wasn't the one that was on the car when it came from the factory. Like, all kinds of BS. And unfortunately, the people have given the government too much fucking power and let them do things. And that's what happens. You pay for it with bullshit like that. Like the EPA. The EPA was given blanket fucking permission to make the laws and enforce the laws. And then they write them, but they're not required in any way to inform the people that the laws have been changed, right? So you're breaking the law and you don't even fucking know it. It's your responsibility, according to them, to go and look for a law to see if you're breaking it before you break it. That's how retarded the system is. But those politicians were like, yeah, man, you guys just do whatever. Make our air safe. That's what we want. We don't want to worry about it. We don't want to look over your shoulder. You just make our air safe, right? And so they've been total assholes and screwing people over and not paying attention to bigger industries, just focusing on people that can't defend themselves in court, the little people, and letting bigger industries get away with a bunch of shit. It really sucks. That being said, they tried to make turning a car into a race car illegal. In the middle of a section about over-the-road diesels, the EPA put one line in there. It was literally about diesel trucks and how much cleaner they need to be and all this crap. Then they say you can't take a car and make it a race car. In the middle of a paragraph about diesel trucks, they said you can't take a street-driven car and make it a race car. And it was no way at all related to that section that they were in, but they snuck that law in there so nobody would see it, so they could make it legal and then screw people over on it. Luckily, SEMA and what's the other company? I forget the other company, but they found Apex. They found the law. They saw the law, or the entry into there, and they notified congressmen and had people in motorsports industry, you know, send letters to their congressmen, that kind of stuff. And the EPA was questioned in a big federal hearing, and the head of the EPA was just mutilated publicly in front of everybody in this big hearing. So they pulled it out for like a year, and then they put it back in again. Those fucking dicks. So they're trying to bypass the RPM Act and all that kind of crap. They're trying to turn any car into a race car illegal. It's some total bullshit, really. So fuck the EPA, and fuck diesel douches for rolling coal on a Prius, because you fucking idiots got the EPA involved in the diesel aftermarket and the automotive aftermarket tenfold more than they ever were, because they didn't even know it existed. They were completely ignorant to the aftermarket and the extent that they went to, until one guy gets the coal rolled on him and goes, how is that possible? I work at the EPA and we have standards that prevent that from happening. And so he looked into it, and that's when he found out there's these things called tuners. And then these tuner boxes, like the Edge and the Bully Dog and all that shit, they found out about those. Discovered companies were doing tuning and allowing them to bypass the emissions requirements of the diesels. So thank you, diesel douches, for fucking it up for everybody. Dumbasses. I'm really cool. Har, 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 har. Look at me, I'm puking black smoke out my... Alright, 45 to 65. This thing does pretty good towing a car. I'm fucking blown away. How good it does sometimes. I know, it's only a 4,000 pound car and shit, but let's see what it's got. Another question. What if I... Okay, no, did that one. Well, industrial companies pay the EPA... Well, I'll stop torching you guys with the signal coming in and out so much. And I don't want to get too deep into conspiracy theories. I'd let they go into with carbon credit and global currency and all that shit, Paris Accord and EPA and all that stuff. So I don't go into that too much. I don't have enough tinfoil here with me to make a hat. We got a little dough. My dad wrapped my pizza in it. So I got some. I can almost make a hat out of it. Is there another rabbit hole that we can fucking dive into? Wow, that sun is something, huh? Sorry about that. And Josh, I hope you like the answer to your question. And which SMG? The MP7, of course. Except for the guy that needs flash and smoke, so he's gotta get a 9. Or a Mac 10, I mean. Best gun in the game. MP7. This is pretty. 4 and 1 versus 4 2 equal length. Is there between the two? Do you play Rainbow Six Siege or Tarkov? Yes. I used to play Tarkov, but I uninstalled that shit-ass game again for the last time a month or two ago. Rainbow Six Siege, yes, we do play that one as well on occasion. But right now, since a patch dropped on Tarkov, all my friends that play Rainbow Six Siege are playing Tarkov. 4 to 1 versus 2 to 1 equal length header. Is there a significant difference between the two? Significant? No. Definitely not. But there is a difference, and the difference is usually really just boils down to the primary length, the runner length. So frequently the 4 to 2 to 1s have a primary length that's pretty short, but it still is longer than, say, like the Killer Bee 4 to 1. And so for some things like torque, a long primary is beneficial. Unfortunately, the longer your 4 primaries are, the more total volume you have in the system. And the more total volume you have in the system, the more lag you have in the system. The volume in your system between the turbocharger and the exhaust valve acts like an accumulator. In electrical terms, it acts like a capacitor. It weakens the impulse strength of the exhaust pulses leaving the head. And so, if you have a lot of volume, motherfuck, stupid connection, more service, which leads to further contraction of the exhaust gas between the head and the turbocharger, which then therefore increases lag. So the lower the volume, the faster it's going to spool. The lower, due to less surface area, therefore less heat lost to atmosphere, less buffering of the exhaust pulses before they get to the turbo. So the 4 to 1 like Killer Bee, I don't like it and I do like it. I don't like it because it has short primaries, but I do like it because it has less volume due to the short primaries. And so people see gains on that. I haven't seen significant gains on it, so I don't necessarily think, oh my god, the design is so good on that header. It's okay, it's pretty good. Where that header excels is the material choice. Material choice is the best of the headers pretty much out there. Whereas other headers are going to crack and that kind of stuff. Although some Killer Bees have cracked. I don't want to give them this golden fucking ticket. Some Killer Bees have cracked, but they have a pretty good warranty on them, and they'll swap them out. And they've modified the design over the years to make it more durable. Before they had a manufactured merge, now they have a cast merge, and all that stuff. So it's a good header. It's pretty expensive. When it comes to certain things, I'm a cheap ass. I like putting money. EMS and fuel injectors, the most. Well, that's annoying. It says I got freaking 5G full signal, and then it keeps dropping the signal. Anyways, headers, they're not that fucking important. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I mean, yeah, they help, but is it? You gotta spend $1,600 on a header? No, you gotta spend $1,600 fucking dollars on a header. To me, that's just too much. Like a little bit more. I think my phone's dying. I think something's wrong with it. It's getting really hot in my hand. So yeah, I like spending a lot of money on headers. Not gonna lie. I feel like it's too high. I think it's too much money. I run out of headers. I've heard Agency Power for a long time, but their freaking flange was too big for the up pipe, and the diameter of the up pipe hole was too big, so none of the gaskets freaking sealed correctly, and the diameter was larger than most up pipes, so you had to step down into the up pipe, which I didn't like. But the header was relatively inexpensive as far as headers go, and it definitely gave power gains over the stock manifold for sure. It's actually pretty damn good. I'm surprised how good it is. It provides good gains, big or small, based on what you're trying to do with it. Big tube or small tube. I like the small tube, honestly, more. And that's not something you hear me say very often, but that is, it's actually a pretty decent piece. I don't like a lot of the brands out there that are the Chinese or whatever made ones, where the merge is not smooth or correct at all. It's pretty nasty. I modeled a merge and primary pipes and a bunch of other stuff for a header that I want to have made. I want to do a cast header, and people are like, what the fuck, why'd you do a cast header? I want to do a cast header because I can totally control the inner geometry, and you can get better performance with a cast header than you can with a tubular, header, because the inside is got the right bumps and the right angles and the right everything, the right merge angle, the right expanding rate on the secondary pipe and everything like that. So I actually want to do one of those, but I don't know how well they'll sell because they won't be pretty, because it's cast. It won't be sexy looking. I don't remember the street on the way here. Hopefully I'm going the right way. My navigation hasn't gone bling, bling, bling 9 times telling me I'm going the wrong way, so I'm probably okay. So yeah, I don't like spending money on a really expensive header because of that. Unless it was something cool.